got Mickey on the back as well.
All right.
So
That's fun.
I'll show you my mug next time. It says grow happiness on it. So I love it.
I I think I might have a thing for collecting. I mean, when I get older, like you know what I mean. Like as I get into this, I think I might have a thing for collecting mugs. You know, my this is one of my favorites. I was given to it by it's a little
Oh,
gnome.
it's
Yeah,
cute.
it's given to me by a student when I was teaching Latin way back in the day. It's still around. And then
Love
this
it.
one, this is one of my favorites of all time. This one here, you can't really. It's just there. We go.
Yes.
It's the Burj Khalifa.
Cute.
That one has meaning. That one I got when I met with Rowan, who was one of the first people I trained. This is back in 2014 when I was speaking in Dubai. And the very first day I get there, I go up to the tower, and the whole thing just felt surreal. Like the whole experience was completely surreal and meaningful, deeply meaningful. Feeling like this work that we're doing is having an impact, not just here but throughout the world. And to feel like that we as coaches are playing a part in bringing kindness and empathy and awareness of emotion to different parts of the world. It is real. It's not theoretical. So that I love attaching meaning to these kind of things and getting in there. But
I agree. I
show and
agree.
tell.
I think we're live, everyone. We were talking about mug
Here we are.
collection.
Yay! It's like adult show and tell, right? Like why not? I feel
Yeah.
like yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So how are you, Raj? Let's do our official welcome. Welcome everyone to the Coaching to Flourish podcast Q&A. I am your host, John Andrew Williams. Today I am here with Raj Anderson. Raj, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on. I really enjoy this time with you, John. And of course, we've got questions as usual. Yeah, I was pondering about growth and the fact that it's March the 15th. And I'm sure people say this all the time. And I was like, how are we in second week of March? Like, how has this happened?
Right.
So maybe there's something I need to pause and reflect on.
Time goes quick. Time goes quick.
It does. So, okay. I am going to jump over to the questions. I've got some interesting questions to explore with you today, John. I'm going to start with there's a question on client readiness. So the question is, how do you manage client readiness? For example, a client who is new to coaching, has not done self-exploration before, kind of might be finding it a bit of a challenge, the coaching process.
It's just true. I think it depends a lot too if the client is told they have to be coached or if they are choosing to find coaching. In my experience, clients will come with a problem or there's something that's bugging them that they need to look at or want to look at. And I think a lot of people are surprised with the coaching process because the problem that we usually come with is an opening or a beginning point to explore other things that might be happening or coming up with in the client's life. So I've worked with range with people in the executive world. I've worked with executives who were almost arguing against me in a weird way as coaching. They were told that they had to do this coaching thing. They bring me in there and then they say, I just was weird. I feel like I was like trying to prove the value of coaching to them as opposed to just coach. That's come up a couple times. It's not my favorite. I mean, obviously I don't know if it's anyone's favorite. So I think that comes up some, if that makes sense. I don't know, Raj, if you've had that experience as well.
Yeah, I have. I was also curious, I'll share in a minute about your experience because you've coached a lot of young people, and
Mm,
when you're coaching young people or students, and you ask them a question, they say, "I don't know."
right.
How do you manage that?
Yeah. So my thing with client readiness. Well, I'll finish the thing with the adult thing. So what I've done with that is I there's a certain point in time. It is actually Marshall Goldsmith. I was listening to in Dubai when he was one of the keynote speakers. This is 2014. He said, "Look, a huge leap happened in his training, in his coaching practice when he said, I'm going to stop. Like, if I want to be a better coach, I need to get better clients." And it seems counterintuitive. All the coaches in the room were laughing. It was a coaching conference, and we're all chuckling to ourselves. But there's something to it, in that when you as a coach show up and say, "Look, if you're not ready for me, client, I know that yes, and believe me, I was financially month to month for years. I know what it's like to stare at a bank account and think, okay, something needs to come through in the next 2 weeks, or what are we gonna do? We're gonna have a plan B, maybe? I don't know." So it's hard. It's super hard sometimes, but there is a magic in letting clients know if this isn't for you, it's okay to let them go, and to stop fighting for every single client, to try to hang on to every single client. And so in that space, in the executive world, when clients would say, "Look, I don't know if this is going to be good for me," I will say, "Look, great. This is what coaching is. This is how coaching works. But it's not for everyone. It's not for everything, and that's okay. I have let go of people and then, or tried to fire clients, and it's not gone well because they say, 'Are you dropping me? Are you're abandoning me? Like, this isn't, So there is a sensitivity to it. It's not like you can, I do think that there is, a conversation that needs to be had about maybe this isn't the best relationship to keep working together. And if it's not, it's time to move, working with students, young people, and I don't know, my general guideline was, we use core motivation, which is based on the Enneagram. If students have the self-awareness to know themselves enough to be able to work with that tool, then yes, I would work with them as a coach. The I don't know is, I have 30 minutes. I feel like we spend a whole 2-hour session on how to deal with young people saying, "I don't know," in the academic life coaching program. What it boils down to is this. One, young people have been conditioned to answer adults with "I don't know" because it keeps them safe. And the first real step in that is helping them feel safe and to get used to answering coaching type questions, which can happen, but it doesn't really happen by trying to force them to answer questions or be cute. Like, well, if you did know, what would the answer be? Stuff like that. Don't do that.
Yeah, I think you're making a really great point there, even thinking about tools. So I was thinking about execs, because I work with organizations, and often you get clients who can be put into a program and no one's really prepared them for why they're in the executive coaching piece. Or it might not even be not that they're not invested at all, but they're not just used to any of that as well. So for me, I have to really think about, and I go on and on about the Design the Alliance, but what is it that we're going to have a look at in Design the Alliance? In my own business, I send an intake form that helps me to assess ahead of time that readiness. Questions like, have you worked with a coach before, or a mentor, or a consultant? Sometimes you have people who are in therapy as well as having coaching, so you can have that conversation. But it does help me a lot when I see on the intake form someone who's not had any coaching before. For me, with leaders, I might be asking what kind of leadership training or leadership development or emotional intelligence kind of work that they've done. Because in that world, I've learned that it really helps me to understand where they're at, because you're kind of meeting them at that baseline, aren't you? Meeting them where they're at. And it might be the first few weeks is we're still partnering, but I'm bringing in those tools earlier. Like, I'm bringing in the core motivation very early up front with them, because one of the things we've identified together is that they haven't actually done work on themselves before. So it's almost self-awareness, emotional intelligence become goals in themselves of the coaching, as well as the other goals. Like, they're the foundational goals for them to build off of. What do you think about that, John?
Yeah. I mean, that's it's really useful stuff. It really is, to get in there and to have those Design the Alliance moments, and to I think there's a different feel when someone's told they have to coach versus when they're choosing coaching. And then sometimes they might not understand what exactly coaching is or isn't. And when I was first started in my coaching career, I would really try to swing for the fences, have huge, meaningful impact right away on my coaching sessions. I don't think that's useful. The most useful way to go about it. I do think the most useful way is to, you have to meet them where they're at. If they're not used to this kind of work, if they're not used to being asked questions like this, it's okay to start small. It's okay to start easy and just, do the wheel of life and do a couple of the easier tools and get them, used to this kind of questions and gentle and yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thanks, John. I mean, this question is like part two. The next one sort of builds off of what we were just talking about. So how do you go deep with someone who is resistant or not used to deeper kind of connection or looking within themselves, which is a bit about what we're talking about. So how do you take them deeper then?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it does it does matter with how you as a coach will approach a coaching session and the coach's internal frustration or joy in these prospects too. The best part, or the part that is exciting to me, and the insight that I'd like to offer, is if a coach is feeling frustration that a client isn't going deep enough, the offer is, or the insight is, what would craft, or how could you increase your skill to craft questions to invite clients to go deeper and focus your energy on increasing your listening, your ability to craft those questions, the ability to maybe not ask a question that goes, let's say on a scale of depth, like goes immediately to the deepest level, but what if it goes halfway? What does that look like? That there are ways that you can increase your skill sets as a coach that will invite clients into that space. The obstacle or trap that I've seen coaches get into is they might feel frustration, like, oh, why isn't my client going deeper? I'm asking them questions and I'm almost like trying to get them to a place that I think they need to go to. Release that. Just release it. And think of a way to release that is thinking, okay, so what's the usefulness of staying shallow? What's the usefulness of shallow? We can stay here all day if we need to, and to make staying shallow okay. It's not my favorite coaching. Do I think large, huge transformation is going to occur? No. But it's also hard to know, even simple questions for clients, there's so much that goes on under the surface. Just them saying something out loud as a coach, you might not know huge things are being moved internally by very simple questions. It's hard to know. It's hard to judge, what's happening on a larger scale.
I love that, John. I love the way you said that. It's the invitation. You're inviting your client to go deeper, and then thinking about the kind of questions you craft, keeping it simple. And I think the other thing I'm curious about sometimes is, are we looking at things from our own lens or perspective? What is deep for me is not the same level of depth for my husband, for example, or other people.
Right.
So what does depth actually mean to the individual? And I've been doing this kind of work for such a long time. You have. I mean, I love it. I want to keep going deeper and deeper.
I think there can be a fatigue sometimes that sets in for people who aren't used to this level, or it feels unknown, it feels unsettled. Stuff is coming up that they're not used to. There definitely is some of that. And I think that at the more advanced stages of coaching development, there's a confidence in the listening of the coach. There's an ability to even hold space and hear things that I think might at one level seem shallow, but on other levels there's so much depth to it. And I remember when I was a beginning coach, I was such a, like, I call it my puppy face, my coaching puppy face, where I wanted everything to be this awesome, like amazing session, and I would have these sessions which I think were amazing, and then clients would come back a week or two later and go, meh, it was okay. And I said, no, it's not. You're not allowed to just think that's okay. You have to think that was amazing, right? And then other times I'd have sessions where I would think it was meh, and then they would come back and say, that was amazing. I can't believe it. That was an amazing session. So there was a certain point in time in my coaching development where I just said, you know what, I can't even judge. I can't judge my own performance on this. I know clients are showing up the next week and coming back to it, which is great. But I have to let that go. Oddly enough, once I let that go and then just got more experience with it, now I feel like I have a better handle on, okay, I can hear the value being created behind what they're saying. I feel like I now have a more accurate read on value creation than I did before. But it took 6 years to develop that, 8 years, like a while before I felt confident in my ability to do that. And I'm not even sure it's 100%. I mean, I know it's not 100%, but I would guess that my value meter creation is probably somewhere in the 80% range.
Yeah, it's having patience with yourself during that, isn't it, as well? And the power in the simple question. I was on a meeting earlier where, I do the women in leadership programs, and now we've got an alumni, and we're going to be doing an activity tomorrow. And we had a few minutes left, and the mentors asked me, they're like, oh, we see that you ask really great coaching questions when you're like in the group coaching space. And can you share some tips and ideas and things with us? And I was like, well, one, I've only got 5 minutes. So that's not, years of kind of learning and crafting this. But this is what we were talking about. I've given them a few simple questions. And I said, it's the power in the simplicity as well. I mean, I still ask myself every day, what did I learn? It's not necessarily an all singing, all dancing question, but it inspires me to think differently and capture all kinds of ideas when I ask myself that. And it's a very simple question, isn't it, really?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, I think, how whenever somebody wants to up level one area of their life, or they want to start a new career or a new project, or really new anything that they haven't done before, that there seems to be a series of, let's say, smaller challenges that don't fit the larger paradigm. For instance, like let's say you're starting a business, and you're messing with a phone application, like a phone app, and they're charging you an extra $25 or something a month, right? Or whatever it was. And it gets the kind of thing where it's just not fair. It's not what it's the principle of it. And believe me, there were times when $25 was a really big deal sometimes, it's like, I get it. And when you're thinking bigger and thinking, okay, this is the larger transformation I'm after in the world. This is the larger vision that I hold for myself and my practice. When you do have those small negative things come in, where let's say a client is, you have a session that didn't work really well, or you're wrestling with things that don't really apply. There is an inner discipline to be able to put all of those things aside and to focus on the mission aspect of it, the thing that, like, the larger thing at play. And from that standpoint, any of these smaller challenges or client sessions that feel frustrating, or things like this, one of my favorite perspectives is to use them as stamina building. Like, how can I use this as my own training grounds for the larger stuff? And I know I'm on the right track whenever I feel like the things that used to get me, that used to hook my emotion, they don't hook my emotion anymore. it's like, oh, okay, I can deal with it, but I don't feel that, you know what I'm talking about, like the hook, like the mind wants to go into that space and, oh, I should say this next, or this is what I want to do. It's like, or try to strategize. It's for the birds. Just, you're up to something larger. You're up to something larger. And the one, I love that. What am I learning about myself? Absolutely. How can this build my, how can I use this for my own training? How can I use this to build up my stamina? And then the other one I really like is no blame, which is if I were to take full responsibility, even if the other person is being completely off base, but if I were to take full responsibility for the situation and recognize, okay, what agreement did I need to have in place before this whole thing happened, or how can I learn from this to do something better in the future? That's a really valuable perspective. And I think as coaches, we get those, we start to acquire these different things in our lives, looking at this through the lens of no blame. Okay. Looking at this through the lens of, I don't no hook. Like, okay, what needs to happen? Yeah, these are really valuable things.
Thank you, John. We are going deep. We're going deep
today. Thank you, Raj. Yeah, this is fun.
We've got a few minutes. I think we've got time for this last question then. So, how much of yourself can you bring into your coaching? The process can feel awkward or unauthentic when you're attempting to stay professional.
Mm-hmm. This came up yesterday for me. What I'm doing is I'm working with a couple of practice clients and to put down some demos. So it's been on my list for a long time. We're doing it. And I was working with a client yesterday. The topic came up. It was around inclusion and diversity. And I felt like, and this was our very first conversation where we're even designing the lines, figuring out, do we want to work together or not? And I felt like it was important for me to explain a little bit about my background, my view on it, where I'm coming from. I felt like that was important. And then I also told him in future sessions, I am not going to refer to myself. I'm done. I'm done talking about me. I'm done even thinking about me. But it was important for me. I felt like it was important for me to know in that Design the Alliance session, share a little bit of my story, my perspective on it, and then design the alliance that I won't go into it again. And I won't. I've listened to too many coaching minutes. Whenever a coach refers to themselves, I've heard it done maybe only 2 or 3 times where I felt like it had an extreme positive impact. It's really hard to make that impact positive and to make it sustainable. I understand the desire for human connection. If you as a coach feel like you need to go there, the most useful way to do that is at the end of the conversation, after the coaching is done, and say, okay, now I'm putting on my person hat. I just want to let you know in that session, these are some of the things that came up from my own experience I'd like to share with you, but that's a completely separate thing that is not in the coaching session, after the coaching session. In the coaching session, we're listeners. We're listeners. And to me, the most affirming thing is to ask a generous question. Curiosity shows care. It's the most caring thing, is to keep curious. That's my thoughts. Right? I'm kind of curious. And I understand this is my thing. This is the way I look at it. Other coaches might look at it differently, and I could be open to other ways of doing it too. But I've listened to a lot of coaching, and I feel strongly on this, but if other people feel differently, I can also respect that.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about this. I do exploration of myself if I feel the need to do that, because I'm like, what is it about this that I do need to share me or an example? Is there something that's missing for me? This is just my perspective. I need to share my story. Is there something that I have not healed from, or is there some validation I'm looking for? What are the reasons for me bringing myself? Is it really useful, Or is it something I need for me and I've pulled out of the curiosity for the client in that moment? So I have to hold that mirror up. And like you, I do hold that space in the Design the Alliance, because we'll spend a good 30 minutes of the first hour, just we'll look at the intake form, check in, we're like creating that contractual agreement, setting goals. I'm going to walk through what a coaching session is going to look like. But I also give opportunity, and I feel that in the exec world, they need it, they like it. What questions do you have for me? And as you say, I'm very clear, like, this is the only time I'm going to be conversational here, because coaching is not going to look like this. But in the Design the Alliance, there is an opportunity, and they do want to know about my background and experience and things that I have been involved in or not. And maybe if that is just a sense of comfort or building that rapport and relationship, I find that clients do find it helpful, but I have to make sure that there is a clear boundary. For me, I'll say, right, okay, now we're going to shift into coaching. So they know that there is a shift. We have moved from the Design the Alliance and our conversation, and now we're actually moving into a coaching session. Like, I have switched my role there as well.
Right. Yeah, I think if it's something where I feel like when I'm listening to my client, they're wondering what I'm thinking, or it just feels like it's in the space. I might address it, maybe, but I probably wouldn't. I just let that awkwardness sit there and use it, and not try to make it go away, but wonder, where does that awkwardness come from? What's the usefulness of this awkwardness? How is this awkwardness not useful? What's the energy behind it? Where's it coming from? Where's it coming from me as a coach? Where's it coming from them as a client? There's a lot of curiosity. Curiosity is so powerful. It really is.
We're on time, John. So maybe we can pick up the second kind of piece of this next time. I'm curious about the question around attempting to stay professional. And I always love that. I'm working with leaders as well. It's almost so it's unprofessional to laugh or, have joy in a session. So I'd love to explore that with you more next time.
Absolutely. Raj, it's a pleasure. It's fun to connect. I'm glad we're doing these. Keep these going. I have more fun things in the works too. Like, we're going to get our participant workshops and interviews rolling again. I want to start doing more demos again. I might even bring some coaching clips to these things. Who knows? But more to come. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Ashley, for setting this up. And thank you, community. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, John. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye.